Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I would like to call this meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, and roll call.
City Council members John Shada, Julie Wolf,
Here.
Nate Nassif,
Present.
Carrie Storm,
Present.
Gloria Latimer. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Judith Chandler,
Present.
and Mayor Natalie Johnson.
Here. Okay, and approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve or change the agenda?
Motion to approve?
Great, and a second?
A second.
Okay, a second from Judith and a vote.
Councilor Wolf, how do you vote?
I approve.
Excellent, okay. And public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anything today? Okay, all right, just moving right along. Next up, we have the consent calendar. We have the presentation of warrants, the February 3rd, 2026 City Council regular meeting minutes. Consider reappointing Barbara Winter to the Urban Renewal Authority Board. The contract amendment with Roxol Consulting Group for Lovers Lane retaining wall reconstruction, and requesting approval of the Blinke USA LLC quote for the new parking kiosks, which, by the way, is a big win. And it sounds like we've done some really great negotiating. So I think we should be really satisfied with that. But anyway, with all of that, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Great. And a second.
Second.
Okay. And a vote.
Councilor Wolf,
I approve.
motion carries unanimously.
Excellent, thank you. Next up, we have proclamation number 0126, A Century of Black History Commemorations. And Councilor Latimer, I know that you are going to read that for us.
Whereas historian, author, and journalist Dr. Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of Black History Month, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and initiated Black History Week in February 1926 to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Its purpose was to make the nation face the truth after attempting to erase Black peoples from our nation's history. Whereas on February 10th, 1976, President Gerald R. Ford became the first president to issue a statement recognizing Black History Month. And whereas 10 years later, in 1986, Congress passed a law designating February as Black History Month. And whereas these efforts have resulted in the month of February commemorating Black history in our schools, public forums, cultural heritage sites, places of work and worship, our neighborhoods and communities across the nation and the globe. From slavery through the civil rights movement to the politics shaping Black lives today, we acknowledge and honor the impact of African American history and their contribution to the nation. And whereas the theme, A Century of Black History Commemorations, urges all of us to explore the profound meaning of Black history in transforming the status of Black people through their resiliency, leadership, cultural contributions, and the pursuit of justice and equality, despite centuries of systemic oppression and discrimination that persist to this day. And whereas we celebrate the diversity of Black peoples in our community, the state of Colorado, our nation, and across the globe, whether they self-identify as African, African American, Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, or Black. And whereas despite these accomplishments, systemic racism persists today, generating calls for lasting institutional and societal changes so desperately needed in our country. And whereas, and every day, we encourage everyone to recognize and confront systemic racism wherever it occurs, and improve representation of Black Americans in all aspects of life while celebrating their many contributions. Now therefore, be it resolved that the City of Manitou Springs City Council takes pride in proclaiming February 1st through February 28th as Black History Month, honoring the countless contributions that people of African descent have made to our country and the world, and calling upon all of us to continue the important work of fighting for a just and inclusive society.
Excellent, thank you. Do we need to vote to formally adopt this? Excellent, okay. Thank you very much, Counselor Latimer. Next up, we get to the business portion. We have the Pool and Fitness Center mural proposal presented by Crane. And I do see Audrey and Farley in the audience. Do you want to come forward and introduce yourselves? And is it possible to share the image of the mural? Whenever we're talking about art, it's always nice to be able to see it. Truth. Okay, so if you, can you both introduce yourselves and give us your address?
Farley McDonough, president of Crane, 621 Columbia Road, 80904.
Audrey Gray, Executive Director of Crane, 1412 East Willamette Avenue, 80909.
Excellent. Okay, and then can you just sort of introduce this item to all of us tonight?
Sure. This mural was brought to us to Crane by Phil Moya and Katie Curcio, already fully funded by the Manitou Springs Community Foundation. Crane's board likes it and approved it unanimously, so we are taking it through the public process. It's been out on social media, hundreds of likes and dozens of positive comments.
Excellent. Okay. Do we have any questions regarding this mural proposal? Okay. All right. Excellent. So let's see. I don't have the item pulled up. Do I have a motion to approve this mural and move forward with the proposal?
I move approval of the Pool and Fitness Center mural proposal by Crane.
Excellent. And a second?
I second.
Okay. And a vote. All right. And then Julie.
I'm in favor.
Okay. Can you enlarge the image at all? Is that possible? It says Manitou Springs in big letters, and then it says "Be Kind" underneath it. And then you can see that the pool is right there, so will go on that wall above the pool.
Mhm.
Does it say "Be Kind" or did I make that up? Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you.
Counselor Latimer, can you cast your vote, please? Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, and now on to community survey direction. Let's see. And we do have, yes, someone from Magellan. Excellent.
Mayor, if it's okay, I'll just do a couple.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council asked me to reach out to Magellan and ask them to complete the community survey again for the budget concerns and directions and priorities. So Ryan and I have spoken several times. I asked if he would be able to come tonight. I provided you in the packet a couple of examples of other surveys that he's done for other communities, so you can see that. And with that, I know there's a couple of things we need direction from you tonight. One is if there's givens that you want us to say, this is the givens that we can't, like, for instance, we can't go against the charter, something like that. And then also, what is the outcome that you want from this? So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan for conversation and to get feedback from you so that we can move forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Denise. And really, I don't have a document prepared other than what was included in the packet, like she said. So I'll just open it up to whatever questions you all might have for me.
Okay. All right. So I'm assuming that we all kind of came with some ideas of what results we'd like to see from this survey. I do know that the Chamber Visit Manitou Springs does have a survey that's going out, and you've received those questions so that you
Yes.
can make sure that there's no redundancy there.
Of course.
Excellent. Okay. And then, and can you just remind us, what's the timeline we're working with in terms of this survey? When do you think we would have something that we could share with the community?
So I believe the desire is to wait until after the Metro District election to launch the survey, is at least my understanding.
Okay.
And so that would be launching the survey sometime around mid-March, and then final results delivered by the end of May.
Okay.
Potentially sooner, but just kind of building in some potential, trying to pick up more interviews in there if need be.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to kick off this conversation? Okay. Counselor Latimer?
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
I was here in 2023, but I don't recall doing this survey, and so I'm appreciative of seeing it. My main concern about a survey is that we get information that's too generalized. And so as I've gone through the 2023 ranking of city budget priorities and then a little bit further back, I'm particularly interested in can the city improve its efforts to disseminate information and provide opportunities for public engagement? And I note that there are some things that you learn there that we can still follow up on. I have some experience in community engagement, and I'm wondering how open you would be to suggestions of questions and maybe really getting diving down a little bit so it's specific. For instance, a lot of times you have a quality of life question. That doesn't help me too much because I don't know. That could be the weather. I love living in Manitou because of the weather, and I can't
You
impact
can
the weather.
control that?
Not yet. No, I don't think I'll ever be able to.
Right.
But anyway, I want to make sure it's information we can use. Also, the number of questions, do you think it's going to hit about 50?
Yeah. I mean, it can. I would recommend it being maybe a little shorter than that. Of course, it depends on how you classify. Like sometimes we'll have a matrix of questions. And so if you count all of those as one question, you start really getting up there. But
Yeah.
practically, as the person is completing the survey, they can go through those kind of questions very quickly. And so it's not so much a number of questions as it is kind of the types of questions that we're asking. If we're asking them to do like a whole bunch of reading, for instance, then it's going to affect our response rate. But as long as we can keep the survey pretty user-friendly and pretty, quick paced, I'm not really concerned about an exact number of questions.
Mhm. Okay. How long of a survey are you considering, or would you consider? What's too long
So
in terms
typically,
of time?
yeah, time to complete it, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so typically what we aim for is somewhere in the range of, for a community survey, you don't want to have it so short that, to your point, it doesn't even end up having any helpful information for you, right?
Mhm.
So if it takes someone 5 minutes to complete it, okay, we probably want to do a little bit of a deeper dig into what they think than that. Typically for community survey, we're shooting it somewhere around 12 to 15 minutes. And now sometimes I'll say that and wow, people really will take a survey for that long. It seems like a long survey. What we found is that the subject matter and who the survey is coming from really matters. And so particularly in a smaller community like Manitou Springs, they're really going to appreciate you all, putting the survey out there, wanting to gain their thoughts and feedback. It's not like it's coming from some unknown entity or some spammy kind of, please take this survey. It's very clear that it's coming directly from the city, and the goals of the survey and that it will be made public is all very transparent, right? And so there's a level of trust there, or at least a desire on the part of the respondent to engage in the survey. So somewhere in the realm of 12 to 15 minutes. Doesn't have to be in that range, but if it gets much longer than 15, we would probably try to cut some questions from the draft at that point. And just so you all understand kind of the drafting process, because I know you were talking about you'd like to have input, obviously. So, I've got certain guardrails in place, like there's, certain things we can't do in the survey, but there's a pretty broad area of things that based on feedback from you all that we can explore. So it's certainly not a my way or the highway. We have to ask these questions in this order, and we can't rewrite the questions. We can't take any, direction from you all. That's not how we operate at all. So even looking back at the survey from a few years ago, if you say, I'd rather ask that a little differently, or I'd rather not ask that question, it's a pretty open process as far as that's concerned.
And these will be email surveys, text surveys, how about paper surveys?
Yes, yeah, good question. So the methodology that we found that works the best is texting residents. So they get a text on their phone. It's got the city logo. Again, it's an official communication from the survey, really, that has an inviting message, inviting them to click on the link, and then they take the survey. Are there some folks that aren't going to click that link because they're skeptical of it? Yeah, there's really, there's no way around that. But we found it's a relatively small number, and it's certainly a smaller number than folks who would, answer the phone, right? So if you historically, how these surveys have been done is over the phone, right? You have someone call and conduct a live interview with the resident. That's incredibly limited, in the year 2026 for a few reasons. One, the survey can't be anywhere near as long. Someone will not stay on the phone talking to someone for a 15-minute time frame. It won't happen. But that's if we can even get them to answer the phone. And a lot of folks just will not answer the phone if they don't recognize the number that's calling. So there's, significant limitations there. We also can send a postcard, right? A postcard with a QR code to take the very same exact survey. So I think that's something that we would want to do or explore doing, just to increase the reach of the survey. Obviously, the one downside to doing the text messages is that we don't have a cell phone number for every single resident of the city. We have significantly better coverage than emails. So I know you mentioned emails. Yeah, that can be part of the strategy. The downside to sending emails is that often the folks that have signed up for an email listserv, and so if you all have their email address, they're not exactly representative of the average resident. They're a little bit more hyper engaged. For a community survey, I'm not really concerned about that. We still want them to be able to take the survey. I'd be more concerned about if it was for example, like a ballot measure survey where we're really looking to, accurately project what's going to happen in the future. I would be a little bit more hesitant to include emails in that case. But I'm perfectly fine kind of doing a kitchen sink approach, as it were, in this case.
Sorry.
I think that we do need to plan on having the postcards, because we have had that feedback from residents that there are people who aren't on any social media.
Yep.
And we really, really don't want to exclude them.
Yeah, of course. And that's why the text message is great, because we're not relying on, distributing it through social media. It's just a text message that comes directly to their phone. And for whatever reason, we found that a lot of folks don't view that as invasive. You'll get a couple, how'd you get my number? Please take me off your list kind of things. But those are really kind of few and far between. So.
Yep. Pro Tem Chandler. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm old enough here on council to have worked with your work product before, including the 2023 survey, and was an advocate for you coming on board for this. I really liked the results of that, and it was data we could really work to form policy around. What I really liked also was when you presented the results, you didn't just present the results, you had graphs and pie charts and all sorts of really interactive information. And just for those of you in the audience and those of you who might be listening in, we are not going to exclusively be using this survey. There will be community engagement as well. but, this will be a good place to start with some raw data. Couple questions. Number one, you said probably maybe May timeframe to bring it back. I recall with the 2023 survey, we had to extend it a few times so that we could really get a robust number. I think it was over 500, 518 as I recall. But I think, did we extend it once or twice?
Yeah, we did. So I accounted for that when I said end of May.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that you factored that in. That was my
I
first
did, yeah.
question. Secondly, what I'm hearing from Denise and the mayor and probably the rest of council too is that you really need direction on what we want what kind of product we want to see and what kind of results we're looking for. Once we get that far, is there an opportunity for council to review the draft of the survey before it goes out?
Yeah, we typically do that. And but I'll go even one better than just reviewing the draft. Typically, I'll send a test link right to the survey so that you all can see exactly how respondents would see it, right? Because sometimes just when you're working with the draft, whether it's like a Word doc or Google doc or something, you won't notice something. But then when you see the test link, you're like, can we change the order? Like at that point, we're not going to be, wholesale rewriting the survey.
Right.
But if there are kind of tweaks and say, can we do this? Can we move this question above this one or things like that?
I
We can
think that
certainly
would
make
be
those.
really helpful if that is the consensus of council. And also, where was I going next? I hear what Denise was saying, so I'm going to answer her question first, and there might be more discussion, but what I heard Denise say is that we really need to let the public know what our givens are, what things we can't cut or don't want to cut, and to me, to answer that question is certainly we have to abide by our city charter, right? So that is a non-starter. We have to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of every resident, visitor, business owner. And so to me, that's fire, it's police, it's certain public works activities, it's infrastructure. So those things are obvious, but I also think that you deserve the list that we come up with of things that are potentially going to be cut. And so that the person receiving the survey has a clear understanding of, this is what we can't cut to keep the city functioning. But these things are what we want the community to weigh in on. So that's what I'm hearing Denise say. So that was the beginning of my list of things that are non-starters. And then what I'm hearing you say is you'd like all of council to weigh in on what types of questions we would like for you to deliver us.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
that's a good way of putting it. Like I mentioned before, transparency is really important. And part of the survey, and I appreciated the counselor's comments, because I agree with you. Some of the quality of life questions, like I don't know how actionable they are. I don't know really what value they provide. A lot of folks still want to ask them because they can benchmark against either a previous survey or other communities, around like similar communities in the area. So I kind of understand that, but I'm probably more in your camp where let's get a little more specific in terms of like every community is unique. Like there are certain things that you all might want to know that another community down the road may not care about, right? So yes, it's developing that list of what are those things? And specifically in this context, it's telling that story about the budget. So if we just left it open-ended, people would talk about all kinds of things. We need to give them some kind of example of when we introduce these things, here's what we're talking about. Here's some potential cuts. While at the same time, maybe being even explicit, like you said, here are the things that we cannot cut. So.
And will there be a variety of different kinds of questions? I mean, will there be any narrative questions or will they mostly be non-narrative?
Oh, yeah, no, it's a variety. It's really important to kind of have a mix of open-ended questions where you just say, please describe a very typical kind of question near the beginning of a survey that we'll ask is please describe the top 2 or 3 issues or priorities that you believe the city of Manitou Springs should focus on in the next 5 years. And that question they can just kind of spill their guts. Like that could have any kind of response to it. Then typically that's followed up by something where it's a list. It says, here's some potential areas, things like that. And so then they're able to evaluate it. But we don't want to limit the survey so much that we're not getting any kind of open-ended feedback from the respondents. It's really important that we kind of do both.
And my last question is that if we're going for a mid-March launch after the election and council has agreed that they'd like to see the draft and you need to get some direction from us, what are you thinking of kind of a deadline from us to get you feedback? I would imagine we won't have all that tonight, so we'll have to have some discussions around that. But what would you like to see as your red line of getting that data to you, those questions to you?
Yeah, of course. That's I'm trying to be respectful of making sure that you all have enough time, but not putting myself behind the 8 ball. I would say by the end of this month. So we're sitting here on the 17th, really by next Friday, let's say the end of the week. And honestly, if it goes into that first week of March, that's fine as well. I think what really takes the most time is that process that we're talking about, is getting everything together. Once I have it in a draft, we're probably 85 to 90% of the way there, and we may just make some tweaks. So really at that point, maybe it's another week or so. And even that still puts us in the second week of March, which is, acceptable for our time frame. Once the script is finalized, we can be in the field very quickly. The only thing that kind of does complicate that a little bit is we should probably, I don't know if you'll have some idea of what the postcard should look like, getting that designed so that you can send that to residents. That's not really something that we do as a company. It's more just, yes, I can send you the QR code, but we just handle like the survey research aspect of it. So that kind of planning, I guess on your end, does take a little bit more time, but that doesn't affect my timeline at all. So.
And I will make one more last comment. I know there's some people in the audience and listening that maybe have some trepidations or not be able or willing to do a phone or online survey, that we will have paper surveys available and provide help for people who need to fill out a paper survey. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
Excited about this project. So, question, in your experience as part of kind of the beta test, the preview of the draft, have you included sort of a small cohort of engaged residents to also weigh in? And what's your take on that?
No, we haven't actually done that in the past. I'm not entirely opposed to the idea. Just they may have some kind of suggestions, or don't phrase it like that. Is kind of what you're thinking, or what's kind of what would be the benefit of that in your mind, I guess?
Well, I think they're the end user ultimately. So the idea that you would have, even if it's a very small representative sample, I kind of view it as beta testing software where you've got the end user that has an opportunity to weigh in. So I'm just raising it. You're the expert, defer to you and your experience in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess what I would say is that I kind of view you all as that group, right? Like you all are the ones who are going to evaluate it kind of towards that end. But if you have a resident or 2 or 3 or 4 that you would like to include, I like I said, I'm not entirely opposed to that. It's just something we haven't done. So.
Julie, do you have anything? Yep, go ahead, Julie.
Thank you. I just want to set this out just to see if we're in agreement on this as a council, that this particular survey, the focus of the survey is to allow residents to rank their priorities as to which budget cuts they want us to make in order to balance the budget for 2027. And so that's the focus. So I don't object to questions like, where would you like to see the city in 5 years? Or do you love living here? Or is it just mediocre in your opinion? I mean, or whatever, that doesn't really help us. But the way this discussion came up about retaining Magellan was so that we could get input from the community on how to manage an enormous budget fall that we have so that we don't have to keep spending money from our savings account and reducing our emergency fund, basically. And so if that's in fact what the rest of council is thinking they want this survey to focus on in terms of responding to Denise's question initially on what is the end game here, that's the end game. And so it seems to me that the survey should include some kind of a perhaps numerical ranking where we provide Magellan with a list of things that could be cut. And like Counselor Chandler said, it's not going to be the police or the fire department. We're not going to eliminate the city administrator role. You know, there are certain things we're not going to eliminate city council. But I think we need to help the residents with this, their input by giving them examples of things that could be cut. And ideally, a dollar amount next to each example, but I don't know if that's too, that might be too much work to pull off by, in the next couple weeks. But, you know, so we need to, you know, list a number of things about the pool, or do they want to reduce the number of employees that work in public works so that the streets don't get cleaned as quickly, or the parks don't get watered as frequently, or what have you, or the planning department, the clerk's office, the support staff. You know, we have to give them, I think, a list of choices to select from, rather than just having a narrative asking them generically, how do you think we should figure out the balanced budget for 2027? I thought it might be helpful for them to prioritize.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to also ask, do you want a question about the revenue, ways to bring in additional revenue? So that's the other thing that we need direction on, if you want a question about that.
So I've got that kind of in my notes here, but to piggyback off Julie's suggestion, in addition to what things you would like to cut, I would also like the question of, again, what things we have to keep, like the things that you love. So it kind of goes both ways. So we're
Sure.
getting both of those ends of things. But yeah, I think a couple suggestions. One, I always like a survey that tells you how long it's going to take before you start it.
Always, yeah. we
So I
always
think
do
that's
that.
great,
Yeah,
because
the
whenever I
survey
do
will
that-
take about
15
10
minutes
minutes,
or
15
whatever, and I
yeah.
can determine whether or not I can do that in that moment. And then the other thing, the library district had a survey a few years ago that, you know, had a list of, say, 25 things, and it said, check off the things that you believe the library currently offers. And it was kind of an educational piece. And I wondered if there was a way to do that with the city too, like check off the things that you believe the city currently, you know, is responsible for, or something, kind of that educational moment to see what it is. I'm always, it just was an interesting exercise, even for me, to kind of test myself, to be like, what do I think? You know,
Sure.
so I think that's kind of an interesting opportunity that I appreciated. And then, in addition to, again, like listing the services, ranking services, and sort of getting a feel for what services people appreciate or feel like we could do less of. And then I do appreciate funding opportunity. I would love to ask residents if they would be interested in some kind of a tax of some sort and what that would look like. And then also just upcoming projects, like ranking the importance of potential upcoming projects. I do recognize that the bulk of the projects we complete are grant funded. And if we get the grant funding, that will sort of dictate that. But just an understanding, again, of those priorities. And then I also always like that next step piece, right? You know, come to an upcoming meeting. Do you want to get involved in an advisory board? Like that kind of piece of that next step. And then also, like Lori had said, how do you like the city to communicate with you? Just some of those pieces too, so we can get a little feedback while we're out there. So that was just some suggestions. I can certainly email these to Denise too.
Yeah.
But just some ideas that I had as I was sort of looking through things.
Yeah, and a lot of that is very typical.
Right.
You know, obviously in a community survey, someone's just completed the survey, right? So you want to kind of, you have their attention. So we often will say at the end of the survey, if you'd like to learn more, if like a call to action, please, provide your contact information. So we can certainly do that. But yeah, all of that seems, again, well within the bounds of what we can do in a community survey. You're not saying anything that's a red flag in my mind, like, oh no, we definitely can't do that, right? So I appreciate all of the just kind of direction. And this will help me just, again, put together that first draft that hopefully should get us 85, 90% of the way there. So.
Definitely, Carrie.
So will we have, this is just for council, are we going to have a target amount that we're going to share that, we're trying to cut X? And I think Julie's right. I think we do have to have some sort of monetary amount assigned to things that we're cutting, because people might be saying, all right, well, we're not going to decorate for Christmas and we're not planting flowers there, it's done. Where in reality that they might only be saving 15 grand by choosing those as priorities. So I think unfortunately we're going to have some sort of a swag at what these items are going to save, what we have that for potential.
Mayor and Brian, also, are there other things we can do to kind of front end load the interest level in addition to a postcard? Do you have other things you'd suggest we be doing so that we can get a high
Sure. Yeah.
participation rate?
I mentioned kind of a kitchen sink approach. I'm not opposed to sharing things through email or social media like the surveys coming. I'll just reiterate that the people that often see those posts or see those emails aren't the most representative citizens of we want to talk to more of the average person that's just kind of busy and going about their day. Those kind of people are the ones that maybe you can even get to come to the community engagement or something. So I'm not worried about not hearing from them. But the more there's just kind of chatter out there about the survey, like, oh yeah, the survey's coming, it doesn't hurt, I guess is what I would say. So.
Yeah. Also, council, we talked about having at least one community meeting in advance of the launch of this so that we could really talk about, here are the givens, here's what's in the budget, here are the things that we cannot cut, here are the possibilities. So is that still possible?
But she can answer.
Yeah, Becca and I are working on that now. Well, I will tell you, it won't be ready till the middle of March. So we'll work with him of when he's launching and trying to have that meeting right before the launch.
Yeah.
Becca just had to finish up some other federal things that had to be sent. So
I
that's
just
what
think
we're
it would be
thinking.
really helpful for people to know what the parameters are before they get the survey. And then that's all. That was my last question.
Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. So here's what I've been scratching my head about though, and this really segues into both what Counselor Storm and Counselor Wolf have been talking about, and that is not just rank ordering these things, is that for example, more than likely the council will be making not across the board cuts. Like we're not going to say, well, we're going to close the pool. I'd love to see a way where the survey gives options where, like, would you be okay with the pool closed a day, a week, 2 days? So to me, that's going to be the problem. And also, like, for example, I'll just use the chamber as an example. Well, we don't want the chamber to go away, but we might want to consider cutting a portion of the budget. And I think the pre-community engagement meeting will be really helpful, but that's going to be the hard part for me to tease out is if we just have a list of things, that will be a great start. And maybe that's better encapsulated in our follow-up community meeting if we have another one post survey. But that's also some data that I'd love to be able to crunch if we can. And I don't even know if you can even tackle that, but address it if you can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we can do that for, if there are kind of, and I guess it's difficult for you all to say before seeing the survey, right? But are there certain things that you would like to dig into more? Like I've heard the pool a couple times. So maybe like just a section of 2 or 3 questions that are specifically about the pool. I don't want to do 2 or 3 questions about every single thing that could be cut, right? Because then we're getting kind of unwieldy at that point. But certainly if there are like those kind of areas that you do have a little bit more interest in determining what public opinion is on these few areas, we can certainly do that to where we're digging in a little bit deeper in the survey to certain things. And, you know, we've mentioned a couple times just whether we need to have a dollar figure in there, and I haven't had a chance to really speak to that. I do think it's important to have that because to your point, someone could say, oh yeah, I've got the solution. We just do these 3 things and the dollar amount doesn't come anywhere near, you know, solving the problem. And unfortunately, you know, the average person isn't sitting around knowing exactly what everything costs and what to do and how to add up to whatever the target number is, right? So and even if we're saying approximately, like it doesn't have to be exact down to, you know, the dollar, but this would save approximately whatever the number is. I do think that's important to kind of level set for the respondent. Otherwise, they're just gonna generally have feedback, but it may or may not be helpful because they're not fully informed as to what they're actually, you know, answering.
So what I hear you saying, just to recap, is if council does decide that there are a few issues that we'd like to delve in a little deeper, maybe 2 or 3 that you would recommend that we have maybe some follow-up questions, maybe a few for those things.
Sure.
Okay.
So like for the pool as an example, if we did this for the pool, it would save X. If we did this, it would save X. You know, again, I don't want to have 10 different things, but 2 or 3 different options specifically talking about the pool, I think is appropriate.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to jump on the pool example, sorry. So I guess the question is for Denise, do we have enough time to realistically slice and dice daily pool usage, daily staff usage, you know, staff assignments, heating, you know, the pool, if the pool is closed for 3 days a week, would that, I mean, there's a lot of analysis that would need to go on around the pool in 2 weeks to try to come up with, we could close it 2 days and save this much money. Cause it's not that easy. I understand that. That's my question.
So that's an interesting question because if you close it 2 days, then the revenue also changes, right? So trying to figure that out, these are going to be guesstimates. That's the best that we're going to be able to do on some of this is say if we close it Tuesday, Thursday, since it just reopened, what does that look like? How many people are we going to lose? Right now, those are going to be guesstimates, and that's the best that we'll be able to do.
And that's what I was saying about, you know, using words like approximately, like the guesstimates are perfectly fine. It's just to avoid that problem of someone just envisioning their couple of solutions to being the entire solution to the problem when it's nowhere near. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I also think it's interesting too, because there's that piece of like, if we as a community say we value communication, right? We want to make sure we have informed citizens and we're in contact with them. If that's a value, then we can then assign financially, like we can invest in that. And so it's a tricky thing. And I just want everybody to know that we are not intending on cutting the pool or the chamber. Those are just easy examples for us to use. So I don't want anyone to, you know, because I think I'm sure there are people freaking out on so I just want to make sure that that's clear, that that's just an easy thing for us to be able to communicate in this moment. Because I think, as we know, we have to make sure that we're clear that no decisions will have been made until we see the results of this, that we value the input and we're going to be using this input to make our decisions so that people know that it's important they fill this out. I think that's really, and I see everyone nodding their head, which is awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, anything else? Oh, Julie's got her hand up again. Julie, go ahead.
Thank you. So circling back to a comment that Carrie made, I agree that it would be helpful for the survey to indicate to the public the dollar amount that we're going to be cutting so as to avoid invading the reserves again. And I don't know that dollar amount off the top of my head, and it will be affected a little tiny bit by the outcome of the upcoming election, not significantly. So I just have to ask, was it what, like 1.5 million that we stole from the reserves for 2026? Am I remembering that right? Or what's the dollar amount that we would anticipate to be short in order to balance the budget for 27? Denise, do you happen to know what that number is now, or do you have to get that to the Magellan people?
Yeah, I'll get that to Magellan. I don't want to, I'm thinking of a number, but I want to make sure it's that right number, so I can get that to Magellan.
Okay, because I agree with Carrie. I'd like to see that number in there so that people have some idea what we're looking at. And I would like to see some numbers next to the options for cutbacks. John Shada and I just spent about an hour and we did some analysis just on the pool itself. It wasn't that complicated. You just look at your gross revenue minus, you look at your expenses minus your income, and then the net is what you're ending up having the city spend. And so if we know that we make most of our money on Thursdays and Saturdays, then we probably don't want to cut those specific days, but it's not that difficult to figure out the total net amount the city spends on the pool and then divide that by the number of days the pool is open, and then ask those questions for people on if that's something they want to cut back on. And so they have some idea how much they'd be saving if they're cutting back 1 day a week versus 1 hour a week versus 3 days a week. So they'll know. And I also think that we should, I don't want the public to get overwhelmed with anything that looks like the budget book, certainly, but we have to have some numbers pulled out of the budget book to put in the survey so that people will know how much do we give the chamber? How much do we spend on Christmas lights? These different things, how much, what is the total budget for some of these departments that we have, so that people can at least be looking at some numbers and be thinking logically. Because if they say, like whoever it was that said before me, if we get feedback that says plant fewer flowers and that's the only input we get, it won't be helpful. So and that takes some work so that we have numbers in the survey. So it's not just a random exercise. And so the question, I guess, is, Denise, whether you and Becca can get those numbers to the Magellan folks in time.
Yeah, I think Denise will work on that. But just to clarify, I think with the pool, I think there's factors like people need to maintain the pool, like add chemicals every day and treat it every day. So I think that the pool closing doesn't mean that nothing is spent that day. So I think it's just to be aware that there's nuances to it, like salaried employees don't necessarily get paid less if the pool's closed. So just that idea that I think just dividing it may not get us the result we want. Obviously, I don't manage the pool, so I'm sort of just making things up, but I realize that there's complexities that we just need to consider. But Denise is nodding her head that she will work on getting us something we can work with, because I think you're right. The more we can include in this, the better, in order to help make informed decisions and get informed feedback, right? So, okay, cool. Anything else? Okay, go ahead.
This is actually a question for Denise. You mentioned, does council want to include questions regarding revenue sources? Are you thinking new additional revenue sources other than the ones we already have? Can you explain that, what you are talking about that you want us to think about?
Well, I think the mayor mentioned things. Do you want to put something on there? Are people open to some type of a tax increase? And what type of tax increase would that be? Those type of things are the revenue source that I'm thinking right now.
Just wanted to articulate that would be included.
Thank you. So again, just to reiterate, please get additional questions and suggestions to Denise to share with Ryan by the end of the week. Is that correct? We're good. Okay.
Yeah, really by the end of next week.
Next week.
Yeah, done now.
We have been longer. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we have more time to think. I don't know if that's
I
gonna
don't know
help.
if I should have said that, but
Excellent. Okay. thank you very much. I appreciate you're taking your time to come out here tonight. We take this seriously. So thank you for,
Of course, look forward to getting the ball rolling. So thank you all.
excellent. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just give a quick update?
Be great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, regarding the public engagement meetings, I'm working with a couple of individuals to get quotes. So I am also working on that side of this to get the community engagement meetings. It would happen after we get the results from the survey. So just know that I'm still working on that one too.
Excellent. Okay. Next, we have the fire chief. We have first reading of ordinance number 0426, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Title 15, Chapter 15.12 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code and adopting by reference the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code with amendments thereto. And just a reminder that typically for first reading, we do not have public engagement regarding this item, but we do when we do the second reading. So just reminding everyone of that. All right, take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Keith Buckmiller, your Fire Chief. Beside me is Lieutenant Brad Doris and firefighter EMT James Corral. They do our ICC, our International Fire Code compliances. Brad is going to be doing the lead on this, so I'm going to give it to him now.
Good evening. As we spoke at the work session, the goal moving forward is to have the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code adopted by the city of Manitou Springs. The two primary reasons for that are, number one, 2021 is a much safer code than the 2015 code that we're currently operating under. Secondly, the idea has come down and we have formed a fire marshal committee within the county, within El Paso County, with the goal of all jurisdictions being on the same fire code. It makes it easier for builders when they're reviewing plans or building, getting ready to build. If they're building a home in Colorado Springs or if they're building a home in Manitou Springs, they now know that they'll be operating under the same code, which makes things very nice. An added benefit to that comes to me as the fire marshal and fire inspector is if I run into something that I don't have experience with or I haven't dealt with, I have a large pool of individuals that I can reach out to that have the level, a higher level of experience in some cases. So it gives us a good opportunity to work through things efficiently and effectively. So.
Okay, do we have any questions? I know we've spent some time on this already, as you mentioned, at a work session. So with that, do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 0426?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Great. And then any additional questions or comments regarding this before we vote? I'm looking at Julie, Counselor Chandler.
Oh, no, just reference to setting a public hearing for March 3rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard as part of the approval.
Excellent, thank you. All right, and a vote.
Counselor Wolf,
I approve, and also I need to leave the meeting early.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for participating and enjoy your time.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Bye.
motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think you are off the hook. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you. We'll see you on the 3rd. Unless you want to engage in the next agenda item, which could be fun. It's a joke. Okay. Next up, we have first reading of ordinance number 0326, an ordinance of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending section 1.32.150 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code by the addition of a new subsection D concerning municipal penalties. And this is something for Jeff Parker to introduce to us.
I'd be happy to do so. So your standard municipal penalties for code violations is a fine of up to $2,650. or up to 1 year in jail. That's pretty typical for most municipalities in the state. That's your maximum amount allowed under municipal rules. However, a Supreme Court opinion, Colorado Supreme Court opinion, just came down in December of last year that said when there is a counterpart state statutory provision that covers generally the same conduct that's prohibited by a city code, you cannot impose penalties higher than the state allows. So what this does now is that except for traffic offenses. So what this does now is it basically adds that one line that says in the event that there is a state counterpart statute, that will apply, not the city code provisions. So, and depending upon how things change over time, that'll cover changes.
So this is something we are required to do,
Yeah, and it applies to home rule jurisdictions too. So no
Okay.
getting around it.
right? So do we have any questions for Jeff before we?
And as one note, I don't think you've ever had a violation anywhere near the full 2650 with a year in jail. It just doesn't happen. So this shouldn't change too much of what your court's doing in the way of penalties.
Okay. Counselor Chandler?
No, I will move to approve ordinance number 0326, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending section 1.32.150 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code by the addition of a new subsection D concerning municipal penalties on first reading, and set a public hearing for March 3rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard.
Excellent. And a second?
Second.
Okay, and a vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And let's see, where are we? Sorry, I should have my printed version out in front of me. Okay, and now we are on to receive or act on council correspondence. No?
One quick thing.
Okay.
Last meeting, remember Joan Stang gave us a big packet of materials to read, and encouraged us to do the bicycle safety class online, which I did, and she was right. It took about 30 minutes. And then there's several little, maybe 12 little 2-minute videos you watch, and then you have a 20 question. It's real easy to do. The benefit, well, not only you get this great certificate, suitable for framing, they say, but also it helps Pac-Man to be able to move into a category of which they can apply for a higher level of grants. So if any of you are interested, be happy to share it with you. And it really didn't take very long. And although I'm a pretty regular recreational cyclist, I did learn a couple of things.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else? Okay, just a reminder that we do currently still have a retreat scheduled for February 28th. It would begin we would have breakfast at 8:30. We would begin at 9, and we will complete everything by noon. That's the plan. I have met with a consultant who can help us with the retreat. So I will have an agenda for all of you to review and give feedback on. Hopefully, what do you think, Denise? Can we have something by the end of probably Monday, maybe? Monday? She's looking at me. Monday? Okay. I'd like to give you all something by Monday so that you can give feedback. So if there's any corrections or additions to that and suggestions, so that we can certainly get that listed, because we do need to get that up by probably Wednesday at the.
All we really need to say is that we don't need a lot of details for the agenda. We can say council retreat or a work session to discuss, and we can make it fairly simple in
Okay.
that manner.
But in terms of council understanding what we're discussing, I would like to get some specifics out because it is a little unusual in that there's some things that we can't discuss until we get the results of the survey, but we still want to make sure that it's we're getting what we need out of that time and investment. So, okay. So actually, so I have not dropped the ball on that.
Can I make one more?
Sure.
Since I see our parking folks here, I'd like to let you know that I'm hearing from businesses along Manitou, people are having difficulty with the Honk app, downloading it mainly. once they get it downloaded, it seems to be easier, but particularly on Android phones, that's what the people in the restaurants are saying, spending way too much time trying to help people figure out the application.
Okay, Nate's going to add something, and then I know that Denise, you can probably respond to Gloria's comment too, but. Oh, I was just gonna say, do you want to mention the Community Connect or, okay. Well, I'm just, so I should say that Denise can
Okay.
do that in a moment, but she has, I think, something that can help with the honk situation, and then go ahead. Counselor Nate, if you want to, sure, go ahead.
And I feel a little guilty stealing potential thunder from Counselor Storm, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the amazing Carnival Festival and the city staff and just the whole community. It was just a wonderful event. And I know you were very involved, Counselor Storm. So thank you.
It was a beautiful day, so.
It was a beautiful day to be the Red Queen out there. Yeah, we had a good turnout. It was great weather, and it was so nice to see that many people come into town to shop and eat and have a good time. It's all those things that we want to have when we have an event, and it was peaceful and happy people. We love it.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, Denise, you're up.
Okay, I just have a couple of things. Tomorrow is Coffee with the City Administrator. I know there have been some questions about Hiawatha, so I'll have the project manager there during the Coffee with the City Administrator. So welcome anybody that would like to come and discuss that or other items. Also, Thursday evening, we're going to have from 5:30 to about 7, we're going to have a community meeting about Hiawatha to really give the details. We've had questions, why is it taking so long? Why now, et cetera. So we just want to have a conversation with the community about that. And the contractor will be attending that meeting to also help with questions. And then our March 7th, we're going to do a Community Connect here in City Hall from 9 to 12. We'll have coffee and donuts, and it's really for citizens to come in and sign up for their 50 hours free. We're going to have computers here, so we're going to help sign up for peak alerts, sign up for Adopt a Waterway, Adopt a Park, parking passes, water meter change out, sign up for, we're going to have the police here, we're going to have fire here to talk about the assessments of their property. So it's really just for the community to come and talk to the different departments. And if you have questions or want to learn something or just want to talk about what they're doing and their priorities, it's that time to do that. So it's really a community welcoming time and to help them with any issues that they may have.
Denise, what were the times again Thursday? 5:30?
Thursday, 5:30 to 7 here
Here.
in City Hall.
All right, excellent. Okay, so now we're going to move into executive session, but Sally has everything set up in the back. So I do want us, everyone that's here, to linger for a moment and grab something as we transition from our regular meeting to our executive session. And with that, I move that we go into an executive session pursuant to section 5.1B of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter to consider the purchase or sale of property for public purpose. The particular details of the property at issue cannot be provided without jeopardizing the purpose of the executive session. And with that, do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Great. And a vote? Has everyone voted?
Counselor Latimer?
All right. What do we have?
Motion
Sorry.
carries unanimously.
Motion carries. Excellent. Okay, so it's 7:03. So what do you want to say about 7:20? So we'll take a little break, grab some snacks, thank Sally and Becky for their time, and then transition over.